Chapter 22, Omens. That summer I turned 15. Many girls are married off by that age, and many boys have already left school to support their families. I was lucky. I would get to stay in school as long as I wanted, and as long as there was peace. Well, relative peace. The bomb blasts were down to only 2 or 3 a year, and you could pass by the Green Square without seeing the aftermath of a Taliban killing spree. But true peace seemed like nothing more than a memory or a hope. This birthday felt like a turning point for me. I was already considered an adult. That happens at age 14 in our society. But it was time for me to take stock, to think about my future. I knew for certain now that I wanted to be a political leader. I felt the word politics had a bit of a strain on it, but I would be different. I would do the things politicians only spoke of, and I would start with education, especially girls' education. Just because I no longer had to fight to go to school didn't mean I have any less interest in the cause. I had been given a lot of awards, and I started to feel that it was too much, that I didn't deserve it all. I saw so many children suffering still. Why should I be enjoying galas and ceremonies? I told my father I wanted to spend some of the money I'd received helping people who needed it. I had never forgotten the children I'd seen sorting trash at the dump all those years earlier. I wanted to help kids like them. So I decided to start an education foundation. I organized a meeting with 21 girls at school, and we discussed how we could help every girl in SWAT get an education. We decided we would focus on street children and those in child labor. We had plans to keep talking, and then in the fall we would decide what exactly we could do. In early August, my father received some frightening news. One of his close friends, Zahid Khan, had been attacked. Like my father, he was an outspoken opponent of the Taliban. On his way home from prayers one night, he was shot, point blank in the face. When my father got the news, he fell to his knees. It was as if he had been shot. We were both on the Taliban list, he finally confessed to my mother. People were just wondering which of us would be first. Although we had been told that the Taliban had fled, there was still violence in the valley. Whereas before, anyone in the region who happened to be caught in the crossfire was in danger. Now the threat was mostly to those who had spoken against the Taliban in the past and who were continuing to campaign for peace. By some miracle, Zahid Khan survived. After that, though, I noticed a change in my father. He started to vary his routine each day. One day he would go to the primary school first thing in the morning. Another day he would go to the girls' school, and the next to the boys. And before he stepped inside, he looked up and down the street 4 or 5 times to be sure he wasn't being followed. At night he would come to my room pretending he was there to say good night, but he was actually checking to make sure all my windows were locked. I knew what he was doing, so I'd say, "Abba, why have you closed the windows?" He'd reply, "Shani, I've closed the windows because I want you to be safe." If the Taliban had wanted to kill me, I told him, they should have done it in 2009. That was their time. He would shake his head at me and say, "No, you should be safe." My room was big and at the front of the house, and it had many windows. I did worry sometimes that a person could climb over the boundary wall and jump into my room. I also worried constantly that someone had forgotten to lock the gate. So after the rest of the family was asleep, I would tiptoe outside and check the lock. All that fall, odd things happened. Strangers came to that house asking my father questions about his friends and his family. My father told me they were from the intelligence services. Sometimes they came to the school and snooped around. There were little things, too. A teacher came to school hysterical one morning, saying she had had a nightmare about me. "You were badly hurt," the teacher said. "Your legs were on fire," and a picture of me that hung on the wall in our house mysteriously shifted overnight. My father, the gentlest man I know, was very upset when he discovered it hanging crooked the next morning. "Please put it straight," he snapped at my mother. I had started having nightmares, too. Dreams where men threw acid in my face. Dreams where men snuck up behind me. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps echoing mine when I turned down the alley in front of our house. And sometimes I imagined figures slipping into the shadows when I passed. I had also started thinking about death, wondering what it felt like. I didn't tell my parents about my dreams and fears, or even Maniba. I didn't want anyone to worry.